Hello and welcome to Talking Point. At the recent reopening of Parliament, new media regulation was one of the areas of priorities that came under the spotlight. The Ministry of Information, Communications and the Arts says, and I quote, "Operating under a cloak of anonymity, some content creators resort to lies and misinformation. So a code of responsible conduct is needed for the cyber ecosystem to flourish into a constructive and civil engagement platform." While the Ministry of Law has said the proliferation of new media has brought about new challenges to the rule of law, and the ministry will review legislation to deal with harmful and unlawful online conduct. Now, such plans have led many netizens to worry that the government wants to impose a heavy-handed regulatory regime on new media. But should we police new media? To discuss this, we have in studio Mr. Baey Yam Keng, MP for Tampines Group Representation Constituency and Deputy Chairman of the Government Parliamentary Committee for Information, Communications and the Arts, Mr. Ravi Philemon, Interim Chief Editor of the Online Citizen, or TOC, and Professor Ang Peng Hua, the Director of Singapore Internet Research Centre at the Wee Kim Wee School of Communications and Information. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Now, we'll jump straight into it with Ravi here. As the Chief Editor of the Online Citizen, do you feel that TOC is being policed?
Yes, of course we are being policed. We are a bunch of active, engaged citizens who have come together to do this blog called the Online Citizen. And the fact that we have been gazetted as a political association, when we do not have an office, when we're not registered with the Registrar of Societies or ACRA, it shows that we were being policed and are still being policed.
Now, talk about this being policed and being gazetted as a political association. Prof. Ang, maybe you could examine what the current regulations are in place already to govern what happens online. Would you say that gazetting blogs such as TOC as political associations is one way of exerting control by the government?
Yeah, that's one way. I mean, there are many ways to handle it. It doesn't have to be a kind of control in the technological sense of controlling the website, inserting itself inside the content, for example, or being present on the website. It can be your offline controls. There'll be a form of control as well.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, what current regulations then are in place?
Yeah, there are multiple levels. First of all, generally the offline rules apply online, generally speaking. There always an exception in terms of being hard to enforce. Then there are the specific rules, one being the class license, and all sites are subject to the class license, and in this case a special license to a political association. So there are different levels of regulations that apply.
Mr. Baey, maybe you could talk about what you think these regulations are trying to keep out of the online, cyber world. We've heard the Ministry of Law talking about coming up with a review of the legislation to keep out such harmful or unlawful, what they call online conduct. What would you consider harmful or unlawful online conduct?
I think from MinLaw's perspective, there are crime which used to exist in the physical world because of the availability of internet and social media. It also offers a space for criminals to conduct unlawful activities. So fraud, cheating cases, because there's also financial transactions that can take place in the internet. So I think we need to protect the public interest to make sure that these criminals do not take advantage of the internet.
But we're talking about harmful, but harmful to whom? It could be construed that the government is trying to remove something online that's harmful to them, harmful to the government. You talk about harmful to individuals like financial scams or online bullying. Maybe Prof. Ang, you could talk about what you think.
Harmful, we take it in a sort of an objective sense. So I would agree that there's a need, in fact, for our rules to be compliant at the international level in terms of ratifying the European Convention on Cybercrime. There's one that's been enforced, sort of available for ratification. In Asia, as far as I just checked recently, it was only Japan and Philippines that are members of that, signed up on that, and Singapore has not. So that's one room to sign up. We are also pretty weak on online consumer fraud. I'm a consumer advocate, and I think that's one area to work on. Privacy as well, the protection for online privacy is not very strong. I'm doing a tutorial with my students on privacy. Facebook has got a privacy policy of 6,790 words. Who reads that? How can we help to enforce that on privacy violation? So there's some of these. So when we say harmful, it's not just harmful to one entity. It has to be sort of objectively harmful. Cyberbullying is a classic example. Some research suggests that we're actually pretty high relative to the international benchmarks on cyberbullying. So that's something to look at.
Ravi, you talked about being gazetted as a political association as an example of of TOC being policed. But how has it changed how you actually operate and actually what goes on TOC? Also, maybe you could explain what are you worried would be in the new rules that come up when MICA actually introduces a new code of conduct? Well,
before I answer that question, I would just like to clarify something that Mr. Bay said about fraud and cyberbullying and so on and so forth, why regulation is needed for that. When you look back a few years, what has really changed? Has there been more cases of fraud? Has there been more cases of cyberbullying? Of course, the Minister for Information, Communication and the Arts quoted in Parliament a case about a cyberbullying, but that was a Burmese girl who was cyberbullied by a Burmese boyfriend. So that's not relevant to Singapore at all. So what really has changed is the political scene has changed. Now there are more political opposition members of the political parties in Parliament. That has changed. So when it comes so close to the general election, it makes you wonder if this regulation is to rein in the critics, the socio-political critics, and not so much to deal with the other issues.
But what are you worried that would be introduced? How would it affect you?
Well, I really don't know if you can really police or regulate the internet, because the internet has got the Hydra effect. When you cut off one head, two more pops out.
Yeah. Mr. Bay, maybe you could very briefly tell me whether you agree with what Ravi just said.
Not sure whether Ravi is reading too much. It's addendum to the opening of Parliament, which happens every 5 years. So that is when various ministries would put in place, the direction or share with the public the direction that the policies, new regulations, new law will be set up for the next 5 years. Therefore, yes, it happens after the GE. So, but I do not believe that it is just about, addressing political concerns. Cyberbullying, yes, there's an example, but I think we are beginning to see a lot of cases. Now people are more active online, and people exploit online medium for different means as well. And I think that's where we need to tackle. I mean, yes, political concerns could be one of it. Because now, yes, the Parliament is different now. People are, I think, very vocal. I think it's good, interested in politics. So probably need to change, but I think it's a broader spectrum that we need to look at.
Okay, we'll carry on this discussion, but we have to go for a short break now. When we come back, we'll discuss ways to police or regulate new media.